Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, guys, I wanted to do a video titled The Problem with Drugs. Okay? Now, what I am hoping to talk to you guys about today is the problem that I have, that I think exists with when people say the problem with drugs. Okay? So this is essentially a an objective look at what drugs do to you and your spiritual process and what they do for your life. Okay? Now, let's start with the argument against drugs. Let's start with the argument about what people say, often spiritual people, people that I've talked to, and their arguments against drugs. Okay? So, um, certainly there are drugs that probably you should never do. Um, Drugs that even I've done that you probably shouldn't do. But really, the certain kinds of levels of things that we have, the certain kinds of drugs, uh, things like marijuana and alcohol, lower level. Obviously, if you go into heroin and cocaine and methamphetamines and stuff, you're having a much different kind of energy going on with those things. Okay, so this is generally speaking for these kinds of things, keeping in mind that some drugs have less of a negative effect on you than others. Okay, but it generally applies the same. So people's problem with drugs is that it changes. It changes the individual. People's arguments for not doing drugs, not experiencing drugs, are something along the lines of I don't like to feel not in control. Okay, I don't understand why people need to change the experience that they're currently living through, right? And people don't understand why people do something that would have possibly a negative effect on them, right? And so there's this attitude around drugs that make it seem like if you're doing something to maybe experience something, right, where your mental state is altered, that you're escaping from life, or that you're not enjoying life, or that there's no point in doing such a thing, right? And so my issue with the people that say that is that drugs is just a flavor, right? People that say, why would you do drugs if you don't need to? Why would you do drugs if why do drugs when you can just be here? Why do you need to, you can dance, you can sing without being high or something like that. And of course, you definitely can. But then why do we do anything, right? People who act like drugs are some major problem are the people who don't understand that life isn't perfect, okay? And life isn't this magical little place. If life was so amazing, then go be isolated and just enjoy your life like that. People that say don't do drugs because why do you need to get high? Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to do that? Simply put, uh, why do we put flavoring in our curry? Why do we put spices in curry? Why do we add spices to soups to make it taste better? That's all drugs are doing. They give you an experience of life. That's all they do. So my problem with people that attack drugs or defend this reality that drugs are some huge problem are missing the point, okay? Because what drugs allow people to do is to experience something, right? Allows people to experience something other than current reality, okay, for better or for worse, because some people who do drugs, like myself, end up having used them at different stages for different kinds of things, good and bad, who eventually learned something from it, needing to go into that path to come out of it. So people who constantly complain about drugs and people that use drugs are also forgetting about their spiritual lessons that drugs are teaching us. Okay? Because drugs are here also to teach us lessons. Okay? Drugs are not inherently good or bad. What happens with drugs is that your intention around drugs will start to in effect over time cause you to deteriorate if your intentions are moving towards a negative way, an escapism. Okay, now I have always said this. I don't by any means regret taking any drugs. Okay, and I've done cocaine in my life. I've done Xanax. I've mixed them with alcohol, and I've smoked weed before. And I don't regret doing any of them. What I regret is that I kept doing them, or that my remorse is around that I kept doing those drugs. Okay, because when I did each of them individually, it was great. I experienced it. That's fine. And the problem was at some point I stopped taking care of myself and allowed myself to become this different person, someone who escaped, someone who had these addiction issues that was always there in the first place, right? And that's the problem, is that drugs are this experience that also shows you who you are. Now, you can have amazing downloads and beautiful experiences on drugs. You can also have really dark nights and have terrible things happen to you and even go to jail for whatever the hell reason, right? And whether it's illegal or you've done something stupid. In either case, drugs can cause you to make really poor decisions for yourself, think things that you're not supposed to think. Um, and by that I mean think things that you otherwise wouldn't normally be thinking, but drugs sort of took your mind to a different place and caused you to act out some things or say some things that you regret later on when you're sober. So drugs have this place in society that can either destroy generations of people or it can help generations of people. And it all comes down to an intention, right? There is no point in smoking weed. There's no point. There's also no point in going to the swimming pool by the same rationale, by the same logic, because these people who have a problem with drugs use that. There's, again, no point. Why do something? Don't understand people that use drugs. Why do we make things taste better? Why do we do things that we want to do? Because we enjoy them. And is that not a good enough reason to do something? Personally, I think it is, because there's no reason why we don't why we shouldn't do anything, or why we do anything. The point is we enjoy doing something. Therefore, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just continue to do it? The only reason to stop doing drugs is because they're harming you or other people, okay? The only reason to stop escapism is because it's not allowing you to face reality. It's not allowing you to integrate your emotions. It's not allowing you to accept reality as it is, to be happy and whole on your own without the something else coming into you, okay? But drugs are hardly the problem. Uh, People escape through TV, people escape through their cell phone, people escape through sex, people escape through their hobbies, people escape through music, people escape in all numbers of kinds of ways. So drugs is just another thing that people use to experience something other than what they're currently experiencing now. And there's nothing wrong with that, because life is made up of different experiences. You can use the same argument for video games. Why do people play video games? Why don't they just experience life as it is? What's up with that? It's the same thing. And you could say that more and more about pretty much everything until you're beating that dead horse. And eventually you're going to have to realize that that argument doesn't make any sense. Saying why do something because of X, Y, and Z is just a silly kind of argument, because that's what it's here for. This is life. Welcome. You can't be spiritual, have spiritual perspectives, and then judge or hate people or hate drugs. That doesn't make any sense. They're clearly here for a reason, and they're clearly spiritual. Even cocaine is spiritual if it's teaching you a spiritual lesson, as it taught me, okay? Just as weed taught me a spiritual lesson, okay? Cocaine was very different than weed, obviously, very different. I mean, one, it's an upper, and weed's more of a downer. But cocaine's lesson for me, personally, was more of of a, of learning how to enjoy life on my own. Okay, it was more like cocaine was you go crazy for like 20 minutes. Okay, in case you've never done it, you go nuts for like 20 minutes, and it's like amazing, and you feel like, holy shit, I can do anything. It's like a confidence thing, and your ego goes nuts, and it really taught me about. It really balanced me out in a way, because when I was younger, I was off the walls. Okay, like my energy was crazy. Like I would always have these incredible like moments of like I guess I don't know if manic, is it manic, the one where you go up, I don't know, but I was constantly up, just crazy, and I would have these hard crashes and stuff. And cocaine actually balanced me out because I went nuts and I went so crazy with that energy that it eventually brought me down. So then I became more level. Okay. Then weed. What happened with weed is that it expanded my mind and it taught me all this stuff and made me enjoy certain things about life more and brought me back into this more grounded energy. But then what happened is that I kept doing it. So now I wasn't balanced anymore as the cocaine made me live up here, brought me back down here. Then I started smoking weed, and eventually what happened is I started living down here. Okay, so now I'm unbalanced again, but in a different way, right? So now it's more like the lows of life. Now it's more like apathy and laziness and depression and things like that. Okay, so they both had these far reaching effects that brought me back to this level middle. Okay, and drugs can do that. Now, obviously, the goal isn't to get to either of those places. The goal is that if you're going to experience something, understand your intention, maybe be with people that you trust, maybe do it for the right reason. Maybe if you're curious and you naturally feel like doing it, then absolutely do it. But there is no inherent problem with drugs. And that's really what this video is about, is trying to get people to understand that drugs aren't the problem. Drugs are not here to destroy your entire life. People can use them to destroy their entire life. It's like anything. The goal of a pencil is to write with, but if everybody started fucking stabbing everyone with pencils, suddenly we'd have this crazy pencil pandemic and we would start blaming pencils for things, right? And that's not the point. That the point isn't that these things are wrong because they exist in our reality. It's the same thing with anything. Pornography addiction. Porn isn't inherently wrong either. Now, it might misguide you around how to pleasure a woman, that's for certain, but it will not destroy everything about yourself unless you let it, unless there's something about you that craves something about that. Okay, same thing with drugs. If you're escaping, well, then you need to take a look at yourself. But drugs by themselves do not have an inherent problem. It almost always comes down to the intention for why you're using it. There's no good or bad reasons to do anything in life. If life was just perfect as it is with no other kind of experience for us to do, then by all means we should all just stay in the same town our whole life. Why go to Paris? Why? You know, why travel across the world? Why do anything? And that's the biggest problem with people that I have that have that problem with drugs, is why do they do them? Why do we do anything? Because we enjoy it. And that, I think, is a good enough reason to do something. It truly is. Because that's what life is. We're here to enjoy ourselves. If drugs don't make you enjoy life, then stop doing them. And that's kind of the problem, is people pretty much who have problems with drugs, at some point they get that the drugs aren't making them happy. They just can't stop doing them. That's a whole different kind of ball game, right? And that's something that I've suffered with, and that's addiction, and that's escapism, and that's a whole different kind of issue. But drugs themselves are inherently just fine the way that they are. There's no reason to judge other people for using them. If anything, we should just try to understand ourselves and our relations to things, because we can have the same issues with cocaine or marijuana as we can with alcohol or porn, as we can with work, as we can with sex, as we can with hanging out with people all the time because we don't want to be alone. Everything we do is based upon our intentions, and drugs are no different. Okay? Anyway, guys, I hope this video had some kind of help you guys understand. This is primarily for the people who maybe are struggling with drugs, or to give people information about their perceptions about drugs, because if you have a problem, if you have an addiction, if you can't stop, it's important for you to realize that the drugs have no power over you, that they're nothing. Okay, it's not that like, for instance, weed is a hard one to kick for people. It definitely was. I guess it is technically for me. It's a hard one to kick, and it does not help when you say you hate the thing, right? That it's weed's fault, or like it's weed or this drug that's causing you the problem. No, it's not that. Okay, it's your own intention, your own use of that thing, and the more that you hate that thing, that energy just makes you do it more, right? So this is supposed to be a video in order to help you guys release your attachments to drugs, to release your attachments to your negative intentions, for your codependency, so that you can feel free again. and to not let the guilt around doing drugs cause you to continue to do things that you know hurt you, because that's not the point, okay? Drugs are not here for you to constantly hurt yourself, all right? You're doing that to yourself. There's a level of responsibility, but it's not about feeling shame for that, okay? Life is hard. Life kind of sucks sometimes. It's not perfect. It's not easy. If you're under a lot of stress during your awakening and you smoke a joint, it's not the end of the world, okay? There's a lot of worse things that can happen. And I know people that have recovered from worse things in life than I ever have, and they're doing really great, wonderful things. So the idea is to take the stigma away from drugs, take the stigma away from people's perceptions of drugs, and to just allow drugs to exist side by side, because otherwise we're constantly going to see them as something to be afraid of, and we're constantly going to be drawn towards them. And that's only going to lead to the same types of issues. Anyway, guys, I hope this video helped. Talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.